Wow. I wish I could predict myself to go win the Powerball lottery some one of these days, but, hey, that's... I digress. The case is going to proceed. Ford and other owners and front office personnel will eventually all have to testify under oath concerning the fact that they colluded to keep Kaepernick out of the league. This essentially all could have been avoided from the get-go by just giving him a job. This case, of course, has no effect on Eric Reid and his side of his collusion case. The NFL yesterday again refused all comment on the matter. And I was just thinking about this yesterday when I was when I was driving to pick up my kids, and I was like, this reminds me of what happened with Ezekiel Elliott last year at some point, to where they just tried to rush the court, push, and the courts were like, no, you can't do this. You can't rush a legal process or legal judgment or attempt to speed up a legal proceeding because you want it. And this is like the 5th time they've done this, only to be told that they can't do it or have been stopped from doing so. After I had a discussion with a few friends of mine in one of my sports groups yesterday, and one of them was like, well, why don't they do a settlement? I don't see that happening with this or happening anytime soon, should that be the step that Collins' attorneys decide to take. Only reason being is that we're past time for something like that to happen. This has got to be strung out and go all the way now. This has to go all the way to the end, through and through, no turning back. Basically, 50% of his case has already been proven, and in some cases, has already 50% been won at this point. The other 50% is going to be decided again by a judge and jury of his peers in court after hearing testimony and seeing evidence brought forth. Now, it's very important to bring up that, again, the arbiter saw through the NFL's attempts to stop this and saw through their case. They also saw some of the summary information and evidence that Colin Kaepernick brought forth. So if this was actually let go to be pushed forward, that's a problem for Roger Goodell and them boys. It's huge. It's huge. This summary judgment is going to go a long way in helping Colin to eventually win his case. And if he wins this case, could a monetary award be given? Yes. But Colin's already said from the beginning, this isn't about money. It's not about money. It's not about back pay. It's not about, getting him or him getting paid his due or what his just due is. What it could mean, however, is that the collective bargaining agreement, as it currently stands, gets thrown off of the books. And that, in the end, could mean more to Colin Kaepernick, Eric Reid, and the players of the NFL than any check that 345 Park Avenue could ever present to Colin Kaepernick just to make this go away. If he wins this, if this goes all the way and he wins this, he doesn't have to say, hey, I want $100 million. Knowing his attorneys, the first thing they're going to do is say, before we discuss monetary awards and judgment, that collective bargaining agreement, gone. To quote Seth Rollins in his theme song on Monday Night Raw, burn it down. Burn it down. Goodbye. Gone. Which means that the rules and regulations that they go by for governing players in the NFL, you got to start over from scratch. That, again, not to understate it, not to make it sound any bigger than what it is, that is huge. Huge news. So again, in the days and weeks to come, I'll tell you again, won't be on the air, but again, I'll let you know how things progress there as far as that particular situation goes. So, good news for Cap, bad news for the NFL. They still do not have a anthem settlement as well here as week 1 approaches here on next Thursday, with the season kicking off with the Falcons and the Eagles in Philadelphia. So You're going to continue to see guys peacefully protest, take a knee, raise a fist, have a seat, stay in the tunnel, stay in the locker room. You're going to continue to see that until some sort of agreement is made between the Players Association and the league. Again, something else to tuck away. Remember for later. They won't come to an agreement on this until sometime late in the season. It's not going to be the Armageddon that I predicted where all hell will break loose as far as the protest goes, but you're going to see them. You have certain networks that say they're not going to show the national anthem. I'm not necessarily on board with the reasoning as to why they're not showing it, but they're not showing it. Okay, cool. You got to do what you got to do. After all, you guys are one right to checks. You do what you want. Can't really stop that. But as far as the anthem itself and the agreement on that, you won't see anything until at least week 10. I'll say week 12 at the latest. But then by then, you only have 4 or 5 weeks to go in the season, so what is it really going to matter at that point? People don't really get to realize that, but hey, what gives? Moving on now to college football. As the season got kicked off here last night with Central Florida and Connecticut, and a few other games, Purdue and Northwestern, I believe, played last night there in West Lafayette as well. Getting to the big boys, get on right on down to it. I have 10 contenders for the national championship this season, and a list of a few guys who could possibly crash the party. Say, hey, we're going to play for it too. Don't forget about us. My top 4 in order. This is not how I see that they will finish the season. This is my top 4 in order. If I were a voter on the polls, these would be my top 4. Number 1, Georgia Bulldogs. In my opinion, although yes, Alabama has a talented and stacked roster, they have something that Georgia doesn't have, but I'll get to that in a second. Georgia has the most talented and stacked roster in the country. They are my number 1 team in the country. The Clemson Tigers, Dabo Swinney and boys down there in South Carolina, number 2 team, possibly with the best defense in the country, could potentially have an historic defense in numbers-wise when it's all said and done if things play out right this year. Although they are team turmoil at this point in time, the Ohio State Buckeyes are number 3 on my list for the top college football teams in the country. And, of course, the 2 out of the last 3 defending national champions, the Alabama Crimson Tide, led by Nick Saban, in search of his, I believe, 7th national title. One at LSU's, 6 at Alabama, 5 at Alabama rather, in search of his 7th title this year coming up. Now, the other teams that are going to be in contention will be the Wisconsin Badgers, also out of the Big Ten, the Oklahoma Sooners out of the Big 12, the Auburn Tigers, who out of the 6 teams in contention, I think that's the one team you better keep an eye on. They play Washington tomorrow in the Chick-fil-A kickoff opener there in Atlanta. I think that's the one team that SEC-wise, Georgia and Alabama better keep an eye on them boys the whole season. Because that's a team that, even in previous years, where you think Auburn is going to have a good year, they'll be okay, they come out of nowhere, sneak out of nowhere, and ruin seasons. So, if it's anybody that I would say will make a jump ahead or a leap ahead, I would say it'd be the Auburn Tigers. Many people don't have faith in them for this season, but the Miami Hurricanes, I believe, will also be contention for the national championship and for the college football playoff. The Penn State Nittany Lions, out of the Big Ten as well, will also be contention for the national championship. And this is not really a popular pick, but I'm picking this team because he finally has a quarterback, and I think if he gets the rest of his roster figured out, I think they may have a shot, depending if they can beat Notre Dame here next week, a shot at the national championship, that being Jim Harbaugh and the Michigan Wolverines. Other teams that could crash the party, the aforementioned Brian Kelly-led Notre Dame Fighting Irish. I think that the West Virginia Mountaineers, led by quarterback Will Grier, that they're going to have one of the best quarterbacks and one of the best offenses and most all-around rounded offenses in the country. The only problem is that their defense gave up 34 points a game last year. If their defense can maybe trim that by, say, 13 points, no, that's a lot to ask. Even if you get down to giving up 24, 25 a game, I think that's a team that could possibly in the Big 12 make some noise, possibly try to get themselves into the national championship conversation. UCF, Central Florida, just played the other night there in Connecticut, quote-unquote, defending their championship from a year ago. I think that's another team to keep an eye out on. The Florida State Seminoles down in Tallahassee. Definitely got to keep an eye out for them boys. They're always a team that tends to, late in the season, kind of creep up. You got to keep an eye on the Seminoles this season down there in Tallahassee with Coach Willie Taggart in his first year to controls there with the Seminoles. Well, must champion the South Carolina Gamecocks. Again, another SEC team. You got to watch out for them. Late in the season again. These would be teams that late in the season, early in the season, they're not going to look like it. You're going to look at them and go, what's Brian talking about? These guys ain't no contenders. They're not. But late in the season, you're going to be like, yeah, they might come to cause a little bit of problems here and there. South Carolina Gamecocks, watch out for them. The Texas Longhorns, not saying they're back. Not at all saying they're back. Saying that they could be in contention for the Big 12 championship this season, which would also put them in contention for the playoff. In the playoff, you never know what happens. National championship contender. They're in the future being built by Coach Tom Herman. They're in Austin. And finally, Gary Patterson, Fort Worth, Texas, the Texas Christian Longhorn Frogs. That's a team that's always in contention. They're just talented across the board. He's a great recruiter. His coaching staff is one of the best in the country. So you got to keep an eye out for TCU here in the playoff and also as a contender possibly for the national championship here this college football season. Now, how do I think the playoffs are going to play out? Well, if you heard my top four, I think the top four remain more or less the same. The two playoff games this year are going to be the Capital One Orange Bowl and the Goodyear Cotton Bowl, played in Miami and Dallas, respectively, on Saturday, December the 29th. I believe that the Georgia Bulldogs will face the Ohio State Buckeyes in the Orange Bowl in Miami. I believe that the Clemson Tigers and the Alabama Clemson Tide will face each other for the fourth consecutive year, this time at the Cotton Bowl Classic in Dallas, again, Saturday, December 29th. January 7th, Santa Clara, California, at the Levi Stadium, home of the San Francisco 49ers. I believe we will have a rematch of last year's national championship game between the Georgia Bulldogs and the Alabama Crimson Tide, with the Crimson Tide being the 3 seed and the Georgia Bulldogs being 1. And I see the Georgia Bulldogs out of the Southeastern Conference winning the national championship for the year 2018. Most talented team in the country. Kirby Smart's going to have those boys ready each and every week on upset alert. He learned from Nick Saban, and I think that it's time for the student to surpass the master, at least for this year. Alabama's quarterback situation doesn't really scare me. I'm more or less concerned that maybe they don't know what they're doing at this point in time with Jalen Hurts and also Tagovailoa, if I'm pronouncing his name correctly, the other quarterback there out of Hawaii. So with them naming co-starters, they won't commit to one. Won't tell the other one, well, hey, this is what we're going to do. This is what we think is best. You can't, there's an old saying in football, and it rings true, especially in the pros. When you have two quarterbacks, you don't have none. Alabama has two quarterbacks, which means that they don't have one at the present time. I think that's going to get them only so far this season, which is why I had them at the 3 seed. Clemson is a 2, and Ohio State as the 4 seed entering the playoff for the college football season. So Georgia, I believe, will have the gold trophy in their hands with Kirby Smart in Santa Clara the night of January 7th after they win the national championship. Moving on to the National Football League and how I think things will shake out in the AFC.